Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Vikings episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Vikings episode review. And this is my review of Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Raid. Now, little did I know, or little did I expect, I think I forgot this from the preview for this week's episode, but when I read the title Raid, I didn't piece together that what they meant was not one of Ragnar's raids on, a neighboring village or a foreign town or a foreign city or anything like that. No, this week's episode is entitled Raid because this was the raid on Ragnar's farm by Earl Haraldson. And like I said, we saw this attack in the preview, but it didn't register with me until the opening scene in the episode. And that's going to lead, that's pretty much going to open up into my general thoughts on this week's episode. And that is, this episode, hands down, by far, the tensest and most suspenseful episode of the season. Now, we knew that at some point in time that this was going, we knew the blow up was going to happen. To use an analogy, the teapot, the steam's been building up in that thing, boiling for the last 4 episodes, and finally the top blew. We knew this was going to happen. What I did not expect was, number one, how quickly, because as I've mentioned in reviews before, the events of this season are happening much more rapidly than I anticipated. So, number one, I didn't expect the raid on Ragnar's farm to happen so quickly. Number two, I didn't expect it to happen in this manner, that Haroldson would just do an all-out attack. I mean, he had a small army with him when they went to the farm. Did not expect for him to come after Ragnar in that manner with that much force. But most importantly, number three, I didn't expect for Haroldson to remain on the offensive this entire time, and this is what I mean. In last week's episode, after the trial, when Ragnar was freed, and of course Haroldson, we knew that he was going to retaliate against Ragnar and against Rollo for getting Ragnar off the hook, right? That was the ambush that happened at the end of last week's episode that Ragnar and his crew had to fend off, right? And then the episode ends with Ragnar heading into the mountains, pretty much preparing himself for what he must do next, right? What I'm saying is that I did not expect that Haroldson would attack again before Ragnar even had a chance to fight back yet. So pretty much since Ragnar's first raid, Haroldson has constantly been coming after him the whole time. And now, it's expected, and it makes sense, because Haroldson's paranoia has been compounding week after week, episode after episode. But the thing is, the irony of Haroldson's entire campaign against Ragnar is that Haroldson has made an enemy where there was not one. Now, I don't know if I made this comment in any of my previous reviews for Vikings. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I noticed early on that what they were setting up between Ragnar and Earl Haraldson was this idea that Haroldson believes, for whatever reason, that Ragnar is his enemy, and it's going to be his actions against Ragnar, his transgressions against Ragnar, that are going to solidify Ragnar as being his enemy. It's the idea that he was not a threat until you made him into one. You provided that enemy. You created your own adversary. That's the idea. And so now, and like I said, it's so funny because there were so many moments where it didn't have to play out like this. Haroldson could have, at any point in time, kind of stand down, kind of let Ragnar, go out and raid and exploit and reap the benefits from it. But instead, he let his paranoia get the best of him. And I think by season's end, that is going to be his tragic flaw. That's going to be the thing that leads to his downfall. And it's all his fault. Because up until now, Ragnar has not done anything that justifies Haroldson's excessive force. Nothing. Which brings me to the most important topic I want to talk about in this review. And this is what it is. This is what's confusing me. What has me going back and forth, even like pausing while I was watching the episode, and then even after I watched the episode before I got on camera to do this review, was, okay, my question to my viewers and to, fans of the series, how do you think, or what do you think, how to put this, how do you guys think that Earl Haraldson is able to do what he has been doing so far throughout this series without any consequence? And this is what I mean. As of up until this episode, right? We know Earl Haraldson is the chieftain. We know that he is the high authority in his village, in his civilization, amongst his people. We know that he's the top dog, right? We know that he owns all the ships, that he decides where his people raid, and that he takes the lion's share of each raid. We know this, right? However, despite the fact that Earl Haraldson has appeared to be of the utmost authority and the utmost power, he has still worked within the confines of the laws he enforced. And I got 3 examples to tell you all what I'm talking about. In the pilot, Earl Haraldson condemns a man to death based off of, that feud that the guy had when he murdered that other person, right? And they hold the trial. And Earl Haraldson, despite whatever personal affiliation he had with that character, remember, he did the vote. And it had to be unanimous in order to condemn that man to death, right? Remember that? Okay. And we found out after, right before the man was executed, that Earl Haraldson actually had ulterior motives for seeing that man dead, right? Okay, we knew that. And that was good because it set up this idea that Earl Haraldson cannot always be trusted, and that some of the decisions he makes are for his own benefit more than others. That was good. We got that out of the way. Do you guys remember that from the pilot, right? Well, even though he had ulterior motives and something to gain from that man's death, what did he do? He still brought it to a vote. He still worked within the law that he enforced, right? Second example. In episode 3, when Ragnar comes back from the first raid, and Haroldson pretty much tells Ragnar, "Oh, you broke, you went behind my back and you did this raid after I told you I would not give you permission to sail west." Right? You guys remember that? However, though, and let's be honest about this, let's call a spade, a goose, and a geese. Ragnar didn't really break the law, because Earl Haraldson said that he could not take any of his ships west, but Ragnar built and paid for that ship himself. So technically speaking, he didn't break any law. But remember what Haroldson did. He, instead of just outright killing off the entire crew, he took their loot, because they had done the raid without his permission. So by law, he was entitled to everything that they gained, right? Once again, working within the confines of the law. And then in last week's episode, by that time we knew Haroldson wanted Ragnar gone. And so what happened throughout that entire episode, Haroldson made up, they came up with a story about Ragnar killing his brother. He went and got Rollo and offered him all these things so that Rollo would coincide with their story. And then finally they had the trial and they did all of that. And of course Rollo didn't coincide with Haroldson's story. Remember that? The point I'm trying to make is this. Why would Haroldson go through so much trouble in order to get Rollo to, why would he offer Rollo all of this and try to get him to, go against his brother and all that type of stuff? Why would he push so hard to have a trial for Ragnar if all he wanted to do was kill him? Why at no point in time did Haroldson just decide, hey, I'm just going to kill you because I'm Earl, I'm the chieftain, what I say goes, and that's going to be the end of it? Why has up to this point he continued to work within the law? My guess is that Haroldson is smart enough to know that if he just does whatever he does like a tyrannical ruler, he's going to find himself dealing with a rebellion. His people will turn against him if they find him to be an unlawful ruler, right? Doesn't that make sense? Because that would completely provide reasoning for everything he's done up to this point. Except what he does in this episode. He just outright goes after Ragnar, kills everybody in the farm, destroys all their property, and then he calls Ragnar a criminal without providing any evidence to suggest that. Because here's the thing. Even if he's still going with, oh, you killed my brother, no, they found out that even though Ragnar did that, he did it for a good reason and he was let off the hook, which means it should have been a closed discussion. So pretty much what I'm asking to my viewers and to fans of the series, in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this, because I am finding it hard to swallow that Earl Haraldson can just go around doing this stuff and not expect any type of consequence. Now, is it just because he has the most muscle? Because everyone in the village haven't worked up the courage to band together against him? And he already has all these guys on his side that he pays good money to do his bidding. So is it because he has the muscle that he can get away with it? Because I think he's going to find a hard time trying to paint Ragnar as a criminal and as an outlaw and as a threat to his chiefhood if he's the one who is appearing to everyone as the tyrant. He's going to have a hard time flipping that. And so I'm thinking it's just a matter of time for either Ragnar to kill Haroldson himself or for Haroldson to be in the midst of a rebellion. That's all. Once again, his actions have gotten reckless, and I don't think he's taken into consideration the ramification of his actions. Which is another reason why I think he was so quick to marry off his daughter. Is another reason why I think he was so quick to go ahead and marry off his daughter, because I think that he, like he said, he knows he needs powerful allies, and he knows he's going to need those alliances. So, but once again, like I said, it's the irony of it, because he put himself in that situation. So he made his bed, man. Now he's gonna have to lie in it. But please, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. If you guys are like trying to coming up with this too, like, yeah, he's kind of dug his own grave. I just think Haroldson, like I said, he went too hard too soon. Anyway, I'm also going to take this time to make some comments about what happened with Rollo, where to be honest, I don't know what to think about Rollo's situation in this episode, and this is what I mean. Why would Rollo not think that why would he not think that Earl Haraldson would not capture and torture him to get to Ragnar? Because when Ragnar and the rest of his family, and Floki, Helga, the rest of them, when they find out from Thorstein what has happened to Rollo, of course Floki says off top, it's a trap. They're using Rollo to lure you to them, right? But why would Rollo not see that himself? My guess, because when Rollo first went to Earl Haraldson, I'm under the impression he was like, look, clearly you have beef with my brother, right? And I'm under the impression my brother's dead because I haven't heard a word from him. And I'm under the impression that his family's dead too because I haven't heard from any of them, right? So look, you had this problem with my brother, you wanted him dead. Okay, you got what you wanted, but look, I'm not posing a threat to you. I actually want to be in your good graces. I told the truth at the trial, which should validate that you can trust me. No, it wasn't what you wanted, but hey, would you rather someone who would lie at the drop of a dime or someone that would consistently stick up for the truth? That means I'm trustworthy, which means you can trust me. I'm coming to you I'm coming to you as an act of faith, right? Okay. That makes sense that Rollo would do that because, and it also works with the idea that, hey, if Earl Haraldson was doing all this stuff against his brother, if he was in good with Earl Haraldson, despite what his brother was doing, kind of separate himself, maybe that would give him some type of protection. It's the idea that the closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm, that sort of thing. So all that makes sense. But what I'm saying is, I think if Rollo really did go to Earl Haraldson with that in mind, that's very naive. And I'm having a hard time thinking that Rollo never considered that Haroldson could just turn on him at any moment. Or maybe he has a plan that we just haven't seen played out yet. Hey, look, after what Rollo did in last week's episode, I've learned not to underestimate this character. And up until last week, I wasn't giving him enough credit. So who knows? This could all be part of a plan. I don't know. I'm gonna stick around and see what happens, cause interesting things at work here. And the last thing I want to talk about in this review is, once again, Ragnar and Athelstan. How that relationship keeps developing. And in this, I thought that all the scenes with Athelstan, with Ragnar's family, with Floki, Helga, especially the scene when they were telling the stories, when Athelstan was learning about Norse mythology and about their belief system, I found that really, really intriguing, very well written, and perfect tension breakers throughout. But I like I said, I like how they keep developing that relationship, especially the scene at the beginning of the episode when Athelstan is talking to Ragnar and they're having the conversation about, him being a slave, him wanting to be free. Why is it that Ragnar doesn't necessarily treat him like the rest of his, like the other slaves, and this is that and the other. And then you'll notice how even their relationship has actually kind of, the steam pot has kind of, the top has kind of blown off in this episode a little bit, because Athelstan had finally said something to Ragnar to offend him when he was trying to get inside Ragnar's head and be like, yo, what are you thinking? What did the gods tell you? And that offended Ragnar, because Ragnar was right. Why? It's this idea that who are you to speak on something that you know nothing about? Athelstan is trying to relate to Ragnar. He's trying to, he's trying to, cross this bridge so that they both have a mutual understanding about what's really going on. And Ragnar, because of everything that's been going on, and because that this advice is coming from the most unlikely source, he's defensive to it. He's abrasive to it. So, I think that just further supports what they've been doing with these two characters, these men of these two different worlds, slowly coming together and slowly starting to develop this mutual understanding of one another. And I like how that scene is showing that it's not perfect, that it isn't just, oh, Ragnar's just so fascinated and curious about brother Athelstan, and that actually, there is, that they do have to try with one another, and there is work that needs to be done there, that it's not just hunky-dory. There's gonna be tension. And so, and I thought that scene was a perfect setup for some of the scenes that happened later on in the episode, that even when Ragnar was, wounded, and they were, and they had to, fix his wound and mend him, save his life, and you have his family, praying to their gods, but Athelstan prays to his for Ragnar. And then once again, jump into the scene when they were talking about the Norse mythology. Athelstan wants to know this, and how even the comment Ragnar made where he says, it's funny, one of your god at times sounds like one of ours. So I just like how they keep building up what began as raider and slave, raider and victim, if you will, master and slave, and now they're starting to really think of each other on more of a mutual footing. So I'm loving Ethelstan's character more and more every episode. They're doing something interesting and intriguing with his character, and how he views his place in Ragnar's culture, and in his household, and with his family, and with him. So, and then of course, let me hold off on that comment, because I don't know if they've actually resolved this whole thing with Athelstan questioning his faith. I'm not convinced that Athelstan has gotten to the point where he's like, hey, even though things haven't worked my way, haven't gone my way, I'm still going to keep my faith regardless of what happens. I'm not sure if we're at that point yet, but I think we're going to get there soon. And who knows, maybe this episode is actually a catalyst for that, because Athelstan praying to his god to save Ragnar, and then Ragnar surviving, maybe that's reinforcement that, hey, his faith is being rewarded when it matters. So who knows? We might be getting to that point a lot sooner than I'm thinking. So keep an eye out for that. All in all, that's going to wrap up this week's Vikings episode review. Like I said, really good episode. Tense as all hell. Suspenseful as all hell. And I'm really looking forward to next week, because now we get Ragnar and Haroldson going head to head, toe to toe. Like, we're getting ready to squash this soon. So, So yeah, I want to thank you all for joining me again this week, and in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this week's episode, but also to some of the questions I posed earlier in this review. Let me know what you guys think about some of these things. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.